It's a great pleasure to welcome back to What's Next Taste van Sail, who is the CEO of Everest Wealth. No stranger to the show. Nice to see you again, Taste. Now, we last spoke a few months ago and you highlighted how Everest Wealth has been doing and how Everest Wealth has really been shooting out the lights and really some stellar performances there. How have you performed since we last spoke?
Yeah, so thank you, Aki, for having me. So Everest Wealth is we basically specialize in private equity portfolios and structuring of alternative instruments, etc. And since we've last spoken, we actually made a little bit actually made it public some of our results when it comes to our portfolios, flagship portfolios, what they've actually have under management compared to the actual valuations of the assets that is within the portfolios. And yeah, we outperformed, the markets as we were speculating that we would do last year when we also had a few media interviews, etc. And we actually said to all the guys that we had interviews with, our goal is always to at least be R1 to R1 within our AUM. In some sort of way, then also having a guarantee with underlying assets, which you can't actually, put in public to say that you are guaranteed fund. But if you have a look at your valuations under your AUM, assets under management, we got to a figure of about 1.2 to every R1. So yeah, that is actually a positive for us. So our valuations came out great with our underlying portfolios. Because that's always the one thing that everybody scrutinizes when it comes to private equity, private debt structures, etc. It's very, difficult to put a benchmark to it, to put a price tag to it, volatility control over it. There's a lot of, gray areas when it comes to normal stock valuations, etc. But I think that's one of our things that we did do, and we did it quite correctly. And I think that is our IP and intellectual property when it comes to structuring portfolios within the private sector with private debt compared to private equity. So yeah, that's also one of the strongholds that we have.
Yeah, listen, and you called it right. I mean, it's a very interesting year from a geopolitical point of view. When you look at global markets, you look at elections, you look at interest rates. Now, in the last discussion, we discussed how the South African elections are influencing local markets. And since then, we've got a new government, a government of national unity. The markets have reacted positively, I believe. We're looking at interest rate cuts as well, which is going to, add some different perspective to the market as well. How have the local markets reacted to the elections?
Yeah, I think, okay, if we have a look at what's going on with South Africa and the GNU at this stage, I think all South Africans is quite a fan of it as we go along. But like any type of, marriage, this is the honeymoon phase. So everything is still nice. It's going as predicted, and everybody's loving and chatting, and everything is just great. So for now, yes, the market's also, is positive towards it. We see record highs on the JSE. We're seeing record highs when it comes to private placements as well, when it comes to, tokenization type of debt structures that we're going to speak about just a little bit later. So everything is seemingly it's positive. Even the Springboks just keeps on winning. I mean, there's just no stop in anything that's going for South Africa at this stage. But I think that's very important when the honeymoon is over. Then usually you tend to go home and you guys have to live together. And obviously then there's going to be some laundry that's going to be on the floor always, and you have to, could become familiar with all the bad habits between the two parties. So let's just hope it works out. I think, if it can work out, that this can be a perfect marriage. And I think, South Africa is usually very upfront of being almost the first in everything. And I think, because
Yes.
Governments of national unity doesn't really work. But if South Africa can make this work, imagine that, then we'll be actually one of the first countries that makes it work. And I think that will be a massive positive, towards our economy, towards, job creation, towards all the negative points that's still, stuck in South Africa in the system. If GNU can work, it can work for everybody. Business as usual. And I think that is what we should strive for.
No, very interesting. And as you said, the year is going to be interesting. We've still got the US elections coming up. What should investors be looking out for in the markets for the rest of 2024? And is there anything in particular to note that comes up on your radar?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things just over the last, during this year. I don't even want to mention last year because last year seems so far away. But even in this year, we've seen remarkable, underpricing within the JSE, good, stops that's available, rebalancing of portfolios that had massive losses over the last couple of years, 3 years on a rolling, stone. And then obviously on offshore markets as well, we've seen the same trend. So lots of, restructuring and rebalancing that happened on offshore funds and structures and fund of funds. And there's a lot of growth that actually that came back. And if you have a look at your returns over the last 5 years compared, all of a sudden now it looks like it's a bit better picture as to what it looked like a year and a half ago, when everything was grey and we didn't know what's going to happen. But even the elections that's coming up in the US, I'm very positive about it. I do think still, the Republicans is going to take it by a landslide, which is not a bad thing in my opinion. If you have a look at, whenever the Republicans are, in control, it basically it's good for the United States, it's good for global economy, and obviously it brings stability. I think that is exactly what the world needs at this stage. The Middle East, when we have a look at the Russia, if we have a look at the normal European states such as France, if we have a look at Germany, if we have a look at the UK, so all of those countries that's actually big hubs of a global economy is under pressure. So we need that stability also to flow over to Europe. So it's not only South Africa that's in trouble. I think Europe is in trouble. South Africa is getting seemingly out of its trouble if it can, keep and stick to the GNU. And then the US, if they can go with a Republican type of administration, I think that will definitely bring stability to everybody.
Now, you spoke earlier, Tace, about corporate bonds and tokens. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Could you provide us more details about the listed corporate bonds and tokens and really their potential impact or future prospects in South Africa?
Yeah, so if we have a look at, corporate bonds, if we can start there, I think that is going to be the future of, I won't say of the JSE, but it's, I think, going to be the future of cap raising in South Africa when it comes to, public companies, private companies, etc., as to doing a normal listing. So as to rather take the bond route and say, listen, I'm rather going to take a form of security as a bond, as a loan from the public with, what's the standard terms in their repayment terms, etc., and then expanding my company like that, then without being evaluated on a daily basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, annually basis, on performance based on what my company actually then produces and has an impact on my price and on my share. And I might have the best company, for instance, and my balance sheet looks good, my results looks good, my dividends that I declared looks great, but because of uncertainty, because of political instability, because of load shedding, because of grey status, because of a lot of things that plays a role that impacts volatility and pricing, then it doesn't really play a role when it comes to, a structured type of note like a bond or a debenture or whatever the case might be. Tokenization is obviously is hit our shores with a bang, and I think that tokenization shouldn't be misunderstood by general public. It's only a thing, it's an instrument, it's an electronic instrument that physically just holds a security. So even if I tokenize a house bond or a house, car, whatever the case is, it's just that security has then been held by technology, which is a token. And I think, and once again, I think the FSCA is on top of it. And our legislation is on top of it when it comes to tokenization and governance about it. So recently, the FSCA also conducted, and it's stipulated that they are now basically scrutinizing and they are governing, tokens in a sense of Bitcoin tokenization, token, instruments, etc. So it shows you definitely that the administrators and, of course, the watchdogs also know what is tokenization about, especially now that it is such a freely type of thing that you can go and list and you can physically put it into the general market. But with everything that's easy comes corruption, there comes, there's always, in my way, as Afrikaans boytjie skelmstreke. So there's always something that always pops up. So, but luckily we have the regulator that's also ready for it. But I definitely think, this is the future, not only for South Africa, but have a look at the general, the world is moving towards tokenization and private debt structures, etc.
Okay. So let's talk about Everest Wealth. I mean, you've been telling us about the results that you've had, and you guys have had really some great performance with lots of investment and wealth management providers out there. Why should I come to Everest Wealth? So what sets you apart from everybody else? And I know that one of the products you've been promoting recently is your Amethyst Living Annuity. What is that all about? Could you unpack that for us? And what does this annuity offer and why it delivers so much value?
So I think that the most important thing is, Aki, is when you have a look at the living annuity structure, traditionally you can select any type of fund, because it's not the regulation 28. So select any type of instrument that you want to allocate your funds towards. It can be unlisted securities, it can be listed securities, it can be debentures, again, it can be bonds, or it can be a structured fund, it can be a fund of funds. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to a living annuity type of structure, and of course the underlying funds that you want to select to be invested into. Traditionally, the problem comes in is when you basically invest into stock markets or listed stocks within a living annuity space, and you might have 2 or 3 bad quarters, like we've seen now over the last 5 years. And then you physically have to tend to start selling shares in order to complement your income. So let's say, for instance, you selected an income of 8% per annum on a living annuity, but your fund that you selected was, let's say, we use a balanced fund structure that you used, and the balanced funds returns was basically set at 7.5, for instance, pre-cost, and about, let's say, 7% after cost. So systematically, you have to sell those shares or a portion of your funds, you start losing it. So we've seen that quite a lot over the past 5 years. When you actually review a client, I need to find out, but listen, conservatively taking 6 to 10% or 6 to 8% as income per annum, with an inflation rate as South Africa is basically the high inflation rate that we have, medical cost inflation rates, if it comes to your middle high income inflation rates, it's not the same as what South Africa is basically saying at 6%. It's much higher than that. So you can't basically, even if you're in the income structure, systematically increase your income with 6%. It does dramatically go up. So South Africans that are living in the space, they do find themselves to increase the income systematically. But as they do that, they still start, eating into their capital and their fund value. So 5 years later, the person might have started off with $1 million, only sitting on about 800,000 today. And now he has to pay catch up still with high inflation. So it increases his income just to stay alive. So that we saw an opportunity in the market is to say, but how do we control volatility to a matter? Okay, so this is a big thing and a big statement to make, to say that you're controlling volatility, because it's very difficult to control volatility. So, but instead of now getting priced on a daily basis or getting priced a day before you have to declare your income, so then the fund manager has to sell shares in order to complement your income, that might be a bad day. So then they sell your shares against a very bad value, for instance, and you lose. And that's how you start making losses on paper. So instead of having that, we said, okay, but let's not price on a daily basis. So with our portfolio structure that we have, is we price when we get into the asset, and then we reevaluate the asset on a quarterly basis, annually basis, and then on the exit basis. So that is when we have volatility that actually goes to our portfolios. And that's when volatility happens and the pot starts turning. So, but then we can physically pre-calculate out this whole entire, what process is going to happen for a 5-year term. And to bring it in back to also on our results, for instance, any type of private equity structure must have an exit, surely. Okay. So upon our exit, for instance, then we start exiting, those assets, okay, with a listing, okay, or we go and sell it off in the private market, those, underlying assets. And then physically, we plow it back into new assets, a new pipeline, a new pre-qualified valuations, valuated future valuations, and exit plan. Everything is always in place. So Amethyst is basically structured on that solution. So the volatility is controlled. If you have a client that draws below 10%, will always have that function of he's not going to plow into his capital or capital amount. And in a 5-year term, he will be consistent. Every 5 years, you can review that client and then stipulate, are we staying in this portfolio? Are we moving along, or whatever the case is? Because like now, markets are becoming more attractive again. So to get a 10% plus balance fund, it's available. Okay, but it wasn't available 2, 3, 4 years ago. So just again, so that type of transparency that we try to build into our Amethyst portfolio.
Oh, it sounds really, really compelling for people who are looking at an investment that's got that peace of mind. Are there any other Everest Wealth products that you're particularly excited about at the moment? And if you want to actually learn more about Everest's Wealth's offerings, What should they do to begin the process? How do people get in touch with you?
I think what is very important, Aki, is go to our website. I mean, so again, we're very transparent. We show our funds, our portfolios that's available, our structure, the company structure, legal disclaimers, everything is there. So again, we're very transparent as a fund management company. And I think how we need to be, especially if you're an alternative advice space in an alternative portfolio space. I think we're the only alternative space, portfolio company that's that transparent. Because even if you go to other companies that seems to be in the same, asset class, you never really know where the money is invested into. How does the structure work? Is my, security I'm buying, is it actually legal? Even to go that far, and the structure I'm using to buy that instrument. So there's a lot of things public needs to look out for. And I think that's something we can pride ourselves at, at Everest Wealth, that we do comply with all those elements. So yes, there's a lot of solutions. We have income solutions, we have living annuity solutions, we have growth solution plans, and obviously also the traditional funds that's also available on our platform. So also on the listed space. So we don't just do alternative and alternative instruments. Also on the listed space, we also, because it's all about the client's risk profile, his needs, and obviously what he wants out of the investment. So we do sit down and we do a compelling type of needs analysis with all our clients. And then so that is that. And we're also moving to the JSE Altex space by the end of this year, where we're also now going to list some of our instruments, and we're also going to exit some of our portfolio companies that is now ready, that we evaluated and that we also made public, that is actually ready now to go to a full listing. So again, that's massive good news for us as Everest Wealth, and it just shows that we have proven concept, that it isn't just now talk is cheap, but the execution is actually being done as we speak. And I think we pride ourselves in that.
Well, listen, you've given us a sneak preview there about what's coming towards the end of the year. Are there any upcoming projects and announcements that you're particularly excited about? When you mentioned the JSE one, I could see your eyes light up there, Tess.
Yeah, I think I just jumped my own gun. So that was actually the announcement that we wanted to make, was to say, but listen, check the space. And not only is it a listing for instruments that we're going to implement in some of the assets that we're going to make public, but also the fact that Everest Wealth is moving towards the life space, also the unit trust space. So quite excited about that as well. So not only then a private wealth type of structure company like we've been in the past for the last 21 years, just watch the space. We're going to be the next big boys. So also you might just have an Everest life plan one of these days. Can't wait for that.
Gee. Tess, I'm super excited, and it's just so exciting to see how well you guys are doing. And, I mean, from all aspects, you're getting great returns, you've got great products, and the fact that you got that transparency on your website. For the viewers watching this, just give us the Everest Wealth website, please.
100%. So it's everestwealth.co.za, or they can just go to our Facebook page as well, where we're quite involved with with the general public, and of course our areas that is close to our hearts.
Fantastic.
There's always something that's happening at Everest Wealth. So you can follow us on Facebook or just go to our website, and like we said, be transparent, and there is an icon there that stipulates contact us, and one of our financial planners or independent financial planners will definitely make contact with the clients.
Wonderful stuff. Thijs van Zyl, who is the CEO of Everest Wealth. Thijs, please, can we catch up at the end of the year after your listing? I want to hear all about it and the success stories. It's a great South African success story. Congratulations, and hope to chat before the end of the year again.
Thank you, Aki. Looking forward to it.